Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of PLO Order weekly videos. This time the topic is, should we skip the micros? Should we just save up money and start from the mid stakes? Something you will see and hear on the internet all the time. So let's start by having few of quotes from the field. Micros are a rate trap. Start at PLO 100 or better, or higher. You hear this every now and then on the forums. Often the player who says plays on PLO 500 or higher. I have also heard that micros are for learning. Once you have learned, just go to mid stakes. No reason to grind the micros. It's impossible to win at micros because the rate is so high. Oh, this is my favorite. Why play micros as you can win and pay less rate at higher? For break-even players, it would be profitable to play mid-stakes due to lower rate. So, are these true? Should we skip the macros? Why waste our time on small stakes while we can just go to PLO 200 and make money? Alright, let's start with some statistics. First, are micros unbeatable? Well, it's not a matter of opinion or what you think or what I think. Here are numbers. And these are actual numbers from Twitter. Rob Young from Body Poker shared some statistics. You rarely see publishes of poker sites numbers, but Rob shared us from Body Poker, Hold'em, no limit 25. And now remember, in Hold'em, probably it's harder to make profits than in PLO at any stakes. Because at Hold'em, the solver strategy and the access to solver strategy and the using and implementing solver strategy is much more advanced or higher than in PLO. So it's easier to get access to decent, solid strategy that is harder to exploit in Hold'em than in PLO. So in other words, it's probably harder to make money on no limit 25 than PLO 25. Probably, not sure. Of course, in no limit you have more players, so you can table select a bit more. But anyway, no limit 25 from this year's August. Then what Rob asked on Twitter is that, what would you guys think? How many percent of the players are profitable? And then he gave us a number. And then I asked that, is that every player? So like if one recreational comes and plays one session of 100 hands and wins, is he a profitable player? So then Rob shared us the number where the minimum is 1k hands. And of course, there can be recreationals who play 1000 hands and they make profits for sure. But there's also a high chance, or at least equal chance, that there's a recreational who plays 1000 hands and loses. There might be a winning player who had a losing month. So the variance doesn't explain the number. The number is average. And it's more likely that the actual number of winning players is higher than lower. Because there's higher chance that bad player loses than higher than he wins. So the number, there's less chance that the number is higher than the actual true. Let me put it this way. It isn't then. There's higher chance that the number is correct than it's incorrect. Or at least there's higher chance that the number is higher than the reality than lower than the reality. So it's a number we can trust a little. And the number is 36% of players made profits before any rate back, any promotions, any bonuses. And that number is still high. 1/3 of the players who played at least 1000 hands ended up in profits, whether it's small profit or big profit. So the variance cannot explain. It's not that, oh yeah, no one wins. It's just the variance that 1/3 of the player. And the number of players was like 8,000 or something. So, and the number of players with at least 1,000 hand, it's quite a lot. So it's not variance. Variance cannot explain the number. No one knows the true number, or someone knows, but we don't know. If we can access to all the databases throughout the years, then we can see. But that's a number we should trust quite a lot. And even if there was a variant, it shows that a lot of players make money on NL25. And the number is way higher than I expected. So now when someone says that it's impossible to make money at micros, we have thousands of players on every stage making money every month. So it is possible. Right now, someone probably thinks that, where are the winners? I never heard about anyone who wins money at macros. I will tell you why. So, the conclusion is lots of players are making profit at micros. So, we can just skip the part if someone says that you can't win at micros. Often the one who says cannot win at micros. And instead of figuring out why I can't win, it's easier to say that no one can. It's just someone gets lucky. It's like saying you cannot be good enough to play on Premier League or NHL, because I cannot do it. And if someone says that, yeah, I practiced ice hockey, and I wanted to be a pro, but it's impossible. You can't make it to NHL. Sorry. Then that would be insane. Then someone would say that, dude, there's class playing in NHL. What do you mean? And it would be absurd to say that. Same here. We have players who make money at micros. You can do it. So if your answer is no one can do it because I cannot do it, it's wrong. Well, what you should do then is buy a mirror, look into the mirror, and ask why you can make money at micros. So there's probably a reason why there's thousands of players who can do it, but you can't. So if anyone says to you that it's impossible to make money at macros, then probably he cannot make money at macros because he has a bad strategy. Or he has bad mental game, or both. Very often it's the both. So that's just the nonsense. Alright. Well, if people make money at micros, where are they? You don't hear often from micro crushers. You don't have YouTubers or bloggers who crush micros month after month, and they show pictures of their beautiful companions and fast cars and everything. No, you don't see that. The one thing is that when someone makes profits, then very often they move up in stakes. Because often we see the poker as a game where we have to advance. I make money on PLO, then I build up a bankroll, I take a shot on PLO 25. We want to get as high as possible to win as much as possible. And for most players, that's how it goes. Or they grind PLO 25, make money, go to PLO 50, take a shot, they lose it, they're back to 25. And so on. There aren't many players who make constant profit on certain stakes, and they say that this is enough for me. Because the money you make on micros, in real life value, it's not significant money in most worlds. In most Western worlds, if you make 400 a month from grinding micros, it doesn't change your life. It can help your life. I know people who play for a living, grinds most days 10 hours a day, but often if they make money on PLO 25, they think, maybe I should try to take a shot on PLO 50, because if I can keep the same win rate on PLO 50, I need to play only half of the time to make the same money. Or if I use the same time, I would double my income. And then if you have to decide, okay, do I want to get 400 a month or 800 a month? A lot of people choose the 800 because it's rational. So I don't know a lot of players who stuck at levels and make profits. I know a few. Like there's Actually, not sure if you have seen on Twitch, there's one PLO 5 Russian grinder who has played PLO 5 for years, and he's grinding professionally PLO 5, and probably he's happy with the money he's making. He doesn't want to go up. Back in the days when Full Tilt was operational before Black Friday, there was a PLO 10 grinder from United States, and I talked with him, and he grinded PLO 10. He made 1,000 a month, mostly from the rate back and small profits. And I asked, why don't you go to PLO 25? He said that he's not making profit there. So he sticks to PLO 10 where he can pay his rent, and he's happy with that. And the thing is, it's fine. If you want to play PLO 10, you're happy on PLO 10, you're happy with the results, it's enough for you. You don't have to go up. Often people think we have to advance. It's like a video game. We have to go forward. We have to follow the narrative. We don't. You can play PLO 5 for the rest of your life, and if it makes you happy, it's a correct choice. But very often, people who make money on certain stakes want to see if they can make money on higher stakes, and they take shots. So those who are good in poker end up at some stakes where they are happy. And very often, PLO 50 is the breaking point, I would say, because on PLO 50 you can make significant money. Like if you grind PLO 50, you can make a few thousand a month easily if you're a winning player. And that money starts to be something that changes your life a little. 300 doesn't change your life. In Western countries, 3,000 extra does. So there's a lot of players who grind PLO 50, maybe PLO 100, and they're happy there. Those who grind micros with huge volume and don't advance that heavily are often marginal winners. Often they might be break even normally and then making money on the rate back. And the thing is that if you're a marginal winner on PLO 25, then you are probably not a marginal winner on PLO 50. You might be a marginal loser. Another thing is that people who grind micros and are happy to grind that 300 a month, they don't make noise about them. They don't post Twitter that, woo, another winning session, crushing since 2015. They don't post like, oh yeah, I win 300 Bitcoin bots. This is $6 bot. Watch me. Amazing. They don't make noise. They just grind. They're happy. And that's why you don't hear about them. They don't brag on forums that, dude, I crushed PLO then. No. So, a couple of yes and no questions. Are micros beatable? We answered definitely yes. Is rate lower at mid stakes? Well, the answer is yes. The rate is lower. On the next slide, I will show you something. But yeah, when you go up in stakes, the rate gets lower. And the reason is that, that on most sites, besides GG, so every other side besides GG Poker, the rate percentage might be the same, but the cap gets lower. And let's say the cap is $2. So on PLO 25, that would be 8 Bitcoins. So every time when the pot is less than 160 Bitcoins, you pay the full 5% rate. On PLO 200, that $2 is 1 BB. So every time the pot gets 20 Bitcoins or more, the rate is capped. And the rate on 20 Bitcoin pot is the same as in 200 Bitcoin pot. And especially in PLO where pot gets bigger quite often, then the cap is the thing that matters. And that's why on higher stakes, the rate is lower. And that's why people often say that, okay, on macros you pay 15 Bitcoins per 100. Come to PLO 200, you pay 8 Bitcoins per 100. So it's 7 BBs per 100 less rate. You make more money. But the question is the level of the field the same? And no, it isn't. That's the problem in that thinking process. If you had the same opponents on PLO 10, and PLO 200, then it would make sense to save money and go to PLO 200, because you make 20 times more money, and with the lower rate you actually make even more than 20 times more money. But the thing is that PLO 10 opponents are not PLO 200 opponents. That's the difference. So the problem in saying skip the micros is assuming that anyone can win on PLO 200. And I'm quite sure that if we would get the numbers for, let's say, PLO 200 Zoom, and how many percentage of players who play at least 1,000 hands a month would be profitable, the number would be much lower than 36. So, some numbers. Let's say we are PLO 25 player, rate is 15 pp per 100, and our win rate overall is 10 big blinds per 100, so we crush PLO 25. Then our win rate, if there wasn't any rate involved, would be 25 big blinds per 100, which is quite nice. Then PLO 200, the rate we pay is around 8 big blinds per 100. And let's say we make 5 big blinds per 100, which is considered crushing PLO 200. Our win rate without the rate is 13 big blinds per 100. So now the question is, if we beat PLO 25 playing field, our average opponent with 25 big blinds per 100, how much would we win versus average PLO 200 player or the playing field? Would it be 13 big blinds per 100? And now comes the harder part. The skills you need to make money on PLO 25 is way less than the skills you need to make money on PLO 200. Because the thing is that the lower the stakes are, the more players there are, and the more bad players there are. It's the ratio between recreationals and regulars. And the smaller the stakes are, the more recreationals there are compared to the number of regulars. Like on PLO 2, probably 80% of the field is some sort of recreationals or bad players. When we go to PLO 2000, then probably 10% of the field is even some sort of regulars. And even they are not super bad. So the higher you go up in stakes, then the ratio changes. And in PLO, we make most of our money versus the recreationals. Versus regulars, our win rate is marginal or negative. And if PLO 25 player jumps to PLO 200 pool, then he's not making money versus regulars, I would assume. So if there's enough recreationals, he can make money. But in the long run, most of the money would come from the recreationals, and there's less of them. So the question is, do we beat the field with high enough win rate? Or do we beat the field even at all? And the thing is, well, I'm going to talk about a bit later what are the differences in stakes nowadays. But let's make some conclusions at this point. It's true that the rate is lower at higher stakes, but the average opponent is better at higher stakes, so they counterfeit each other. Now the question is, which one affects more on win rate? And I would say that the level of opponents go up more than the rate goes down. Because you can be a crusher on PLO 10, but then when you took the same game to PLO 50 or PLO 100, people, the regulars would run you over. Beating stakes doesn't mean you beat higher ones. That's the thing. And I will explain why some people think that would be the case. And the question is, if you can't beat PLO 10, then why would you beat PLO 100? Because people often say that, okay, you can make money on PLO 10, don't grind there. Save 2000 and go to PLO 100. It's easier there. And that doesn't make sense. Yeah, the rate is a bit lower, but if you cannot beat PLO 10 opponents, even with higher rate, then why would you beat PLO 100 opponents? Because they are not the same. And that's the underlying flaw in the thinking of we should skip the micros. The thing is, when we go up in stakes, like we play PLO, then when we feel that, okay, we beat the opponents, and then we move up to PLO 25, the challenge goes gradually up. On PLO 25, probably the ratio of recreationals and regulars changes a little. The skill level of regulars goes up a little, so you get a slightly better challenge, more challenge. And then you have to study, learn, practice, become a better player, and you beat PLO 25. Then you can go to PLO 50, face new challenges, new opponents. You have to be a bit better to win there. If you do that, go to PLO 100. And that way you have a gradual ladders that you can climb up. And same way is in any sports, like, let's say you want to play on NHL for the ice hockey, or you want to play on Premier League in soccer. You just can't jump there and say that, okay, I'm here. I'm as good as you guys. Or if you're a dominant player on the backyard games, it doesn't mean you're a dominant player on NHL or Premier League. But if you practice and you start from backyard, then you go to lower divisions, you go up division by division, team by team, then gradually you might get to NHL. But you just can't jump there and assume that, okay, I beat my little brother backyard, so I would beat anyone on NHL. That would be stupid. But in poker, some players say that that would be the case. Oh, you don't beat PLO then, but PLO 100, it's easier, less rate. No. And if you save up a few thousands and jump to PLO 100 and say, let's crush, but you don't have the skills to crush, then you're probably going to lose a lot of money, and that sucks. So when you go up gradually in stakes, the risk of losing a lot of money is lower. So the question is, why, oh why, people then say that we should skip the micros? The thing is that you often hear that from higher stakes players, or pretty much always. And the thing is, they haven't played micros for years. They had played, let's say, someone who plays PLO 1000 or 5000 or even higher, probably they have played PLO 10, PLO 50, PLO 100 10 years ago. And back in that day, even PLO 100 was like what PLO 2 is nowadays. So they think that still everything below PLO 100 is just play money. It's the same. And that was the case 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But nowadays it's not. It's very different. And you will often see these mid-stakes, high-stakes players start a project that, okay, I'll show you how to beat the macros. And then they go to macros, they keep up the project for a little, and they end it quietly. I mean, I remember a lot of failed projects. And I can remember in PLO cash games that there are a lot of success stories. There are, of course. But the problem is very often when higher stakes players drop down to macros, they play the same game as higher stakes. And that is very non-optimal for the small stakes. So, to the rate, they lose money. It's like playing solver strategy on PLO, then it's not optimal. So, the games at macros are very different. But it's a valid point to ask that if we learn a strategy that beats PLO 10, then does that work on PLO 100? And then the answer is it depends what that strategy is, but if we practice, let me put this way, if we ever practice anything that is one-dimensional, so we have one strategy that we follow, then it might be optimal for one environment, but not for another. Like on PLO 10 or lower, we can exploit opponents with heavy aggression. And it works because the average opponent cannot fight back. He doesn't have the skills to fight back. But then when opponents become better and they start to have skills to fight back that aggression, it backfires. And then we should change our strategy. And if we don't have skills for that, it doesn't work. So that's why if you jump from PLO 10 to PLO 100, then probably it's not going to work because the strategy to make money on PLO 10 is a bit different than on PLO 100. But we should never be one-dimensional. Our toolbox should have all kinds of tools so we can play versus any kind of opponent. And the thing is that if we have a VPIP 100 calling station, then the principles and concepts to make money versus that player are the same, no matter what the stakes are. If the opponent is the same, then the strategy versus him is the same, whether it's PLO 10 or PLO 100. So to make money in poker, you have to be able to identify opponents and then use the correct strategy if you want to maximize the profits. And if you can do that, then it doesn't matter what stakes you play, you are probably more successful. But if you just become one-dimensional strategy that, okay, this works on PLO 10 player pool versus average opponent, yeah, it might work. But the problem is if you go to PLO 25, the player pool changes. And it might not be profitable anymore. So it's not so black and white. Can we skip the micros or not? So, the bottom line is, my opinion is that we definitely should not skip the micros. But that being said, it is true that the rate is lower at higher stakes. But you have to estimate yourself. When should I move up? And do it gradually. Don't jump from the shallow end of the pool directly to the deep end of the pool. Don't jump from PLO 10 to PLO 100 because the difference is so dramatic. What you're used in PLO 10 is passive opponents. Then you go to PLO 100 where the aggression goes through the roof and you're probably like, whoa, what's going on? It is possible to jump from PLO 10 to PLO 100. It depends how you learn, what kind of strategy you learn. Do you have earlier experience in poker? I know there's a lot of players who started PLO and they played micros for a while. They had used the game and then jumped to PLO 200 and started making money, but they had a background in poker. They might be winning players in Hold'em, so they understand all the concepts. They just need to fine-tune those to PLO. And then they use the smaller stakes to practice that because it costs less on smaller stakes. But then when they are confident that, okay, I have a pretty good strategy here or decent, they go to PLO 200, PLO 100 and try it. Of course you can try it, but the thing is that if you are not winning player, then you're going to lose more money on PLO 100 than on PLO 10. And then the thing is, on another note, I know a lot of people who force themselves to be stuck at micros with too conservative bankroll management. There's videos about bankroll management, you might want to check them out. But the thing is that if we want to move up in stakes, then use more aggressive bankroll management to give yourself a chance to go and face the opponents on higher stakes as fast as possible. Because the more you play with them, the more you know how you're doing versus them. And easier it is to think, how can I beat them? But if we say that, okay, I have to make 100 buy-ins on PLO then do the rate. It's harder to win, of course, but it might take a long time. And the more you play PLO then of course the more you learn sort of bad habits for higher stakes. So I would say that if you are studying a lot, you should be becoming gradually better all the time. Then use more aggressive background management, take shots, try to get to higher as fast as possible to speed up the learning curve. But if you're not studying, then why would you become a better player? And that's what often people do. They play a lot, a lot, and they don't study a lot. And even the small time they study, they don't use it effectively. There's a video about how to study. Might want to check that one too. So they're playing a lot, but they don't put effort in becoming a better player, because playing poker doesn't make you better, or it makes you slightly better, but in the big scheme, just playing doesn't make you better. You just play. So if you play a lot on PLO, then you're marginal winner. You don't become a better player. Just right there if you're happy. But if you're not happy to play on PLO, then you say, I want to be a PLO 50 winner. Then you should emphasize on studying as much as possible, because the only way to get to PLO 50 and stay there is first make money to take the shots, and then when you take the shots, be a winning player. But if you don't study at all, and you're marginal winner on PLO, then what makes you think that just grinding 2 years to make the money to take a shot on PLO 50, why would you be a winning player on PLO 50 if you don't study? So I would say that to get out of the micros, study as much as you can. Often the people say that you can't beat the micros, or you can't get out of the micros due to rate. Those are the ones who don't study. And it's not the micros that's preventing them, it's themselves. So that's my opinion about should we skip the micros. Explained very dynamically in over half 1 hour video. I hope you enjoyed, at least. I hope you got some ideas, thoughts in your head. You don't have to agree with me. Instead, I would be happy if someone disagrees. Come to Discord, forums, and let's have a discussion. If you don't agree with everything, let me know and we can discuss about it, share ideas, and so on. That's beneficial for everyone. But hope you enjoyed. Be safe in the galaxy. Bye-bye.